Hello and welcome to Not Every Single. I'm Joe.
And I'm Stephanie.
The time has come. Some people have been waiting patiently, and we finally arrived at Ultraviolence, Lana Del Rey's 2014 album that we just heard for the first time today.
I've heard it before.
Oh, that's right. I just heard it for the first time today. Okay, that's right. I couldn't remember what you had heard and what you hadn't heard.
Yeah, this was one of the few of hers.
So this is a Joe hears for the first time kind of thing.
I feel like I was hearing it for the first time because I had just kind of put it on in the background. I've said this in our last video. You have to experience her through headphones.
Definitely.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. The word I'd use to describe this album overall is lush. Mm-hmm. Lush, very washy, lot going on in headphones. Yeah, really needs a good detailed listen.
Which is interesting because she described this as like a stripped down project.
I guess I can understand that in the sense that there's like less electronics.
I think that's what she was kind of talking about.
Which leads me to my first note on Cruel World. I wrote, less LA, more Americana. Mm-hmm. These were two different avenues we heard on Born to Die. And with Paradise, it seemed to start to lean a little more into that like darkness and the LA thing while retaining the Americana thing. This feels full on Americana until that very last song, Florida
Oh my
Kilos.
gosh, which I really like that song.
Me too.
Yeah.
We'll get to it.
And there's actually, that's technically the deluxe. It ends at Old Money.
Well, the deluxe was all that's available on Spotify.
Yeah.
Which is often the case.
Yeah. So I listened to all of it.
Yeah. We've heard the whole deluxe. We've taken it all in. That was my first note is, okay, it's more down that route. Mm-hmm. And which, I really liked the electronics in Born to Die. So for Ultraviolence, for me, like, I wasn't as immediately like, oh, I like this. Mm-hmm. Because my background with like stuff like this is I really like Pure Heroin, When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? This minimal, dark pop electronic thing. And so that element of Born to Die was kind of my favorite part, and it's not here.
Yeah, there's a little more guitar going on here.
Yeah, it's a little more Twin Peaksy, I'd say.
Yeah, I have to say, like, the production is actually not the thing that stands out to me about this album.
No, I think it's, the strength of her ability to paint a picture with her vocals and her lyrics. Her lyrics paint this like Norman Rockwell, but creepier.
We'll get to Norman Rockwell in a later album.
Oh, that's right. She named a record that.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just thinking like Americana artist, and that's obviously who comes to mind. But yeah, her vocals paint this, her lyrics paint this picture, this imagery, these like pop culture references and stuff. Like that's what's highlighted here.
Yeah. And, taking away the electronic element and focusing more on her lyrics and what she does with the lyrics in this album, it's a little less referential, I would say,
you
to
get
specific things.
Some Lou Reed references, some other stuff, but yeah, not quite as much.
So what really came to me throughout listening to this album is like, the more I listened to it, the more I started to like feel what she was doing with her persona. It's something I think she does a lot in Born to Die and in Paradise.
Yeah.
And that really comes to another level on this album. She actually wasn't going to initially do another album ever.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
I looked into
that. Seems like a very Lana thing, though.
Yeah. And so I was reading just a tiny bit about the Wikipedia. So I'm no expert. All you people know more than me about Lana. It's funny because, she said, I feel like I've said everything I have to say. Wow. I'm not going to do another album. And then like the next year, she puts out an album. But it's interesting because then it was like, everyone's always about like the second album and like, what's it going to be? So she already kind of skirted that by putting out Paradise.
Yeah.
And with this one, she kind of just let herself be like, okay, I don't need to write another album. And then she just did. So
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not sitting there like with the record label being like, you got to make a bigger album. And then she did. She made this album was very critically acclaimed.
And from what I understand by a lot of your comments, maybe a fan favorite. It's people are like, you got to get to Ultraviolence. Like, you got to check that one out. Do it. And I can see why. There's there's lyrics in this thing that cut like a knife, that holding on to that like psychosexual, almost vulgarness that we heard on Born to Die in Paradise. That's still here, but it's a little even more raw and vulnerable. He hit me and it felt like a kiss in the title track, Ultraviolence. Like that, that kind of like barrels over you.
I believe that, and that line is a reference to another song, which I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
But yeah, that song is dark.
Yeah. And even just the kind of like sprawling epic that is this opening song, Cruel World. You got these like 70s drums and guitar now instead of this like minimal drum machine thing. And yeah, I don't know who the session people were on this album, but they did a great job. Loving the guitar tones and that dry, tasteful drum sound. The fills sound like something from Hurdy-Gurdy Man by Donovan.
Yeah.
You know, it's that very flat, dead sound of the drums back then.
Yeah.
No resonance, really. They're not like bong. It's just like bap.
Yeah.
Good job explaining it.
A sound is worth 1,000 words.
Yeah. Shades of Cool, I wanted to mention. That's where I started to like understand this record a bit more. You still have that element where like this totally sounds like it could be James Bond. But also it made me think of a record that I really want to recommend if you haven't heard it. It's by Julie Cruz, and it's her album Floating into the Night, which actually, believe it or not, contains the Twin Peaks theme song, but with vocals. Yeah, the Twin Peaks theme song is just an instrumental version of a Julie Cruz song.
Yeah, so that's kind of her. If you like that sort of a thing. I actually haven't heard that album, so I'll take that recommendation. I've been meaning to listen to it.
It's very good. I used to play it in the record store all the time. If you like Ultraviolence, please check out Floating into the Night by Julie Cruz. Let's move on to some of your notes. What do you got written down over there?
I really don't have like that much notes. I was just like thinking a lot about about who she is as an artist, who she's presenting. Clearly, we have no idea who she is as a person, and that's part of it.
That's what I love about it.
Yeah.
This person is so mysterious. I feel like, I don't know anything about them. Like they are putting on this persona that while is emotional and vulnerable and stuff, like it still seems like this mask.
Well, I wrote down the phrase that came to me. It's a subversive performance of the American ingenue.
Whoa.
Which is just a fancy way of saying like she is taking this idea of like the ideal Americana girl and the whole idea of the sad girl that she sort of created or popularized with Born to Die. And she's performing it in the same way she did in Born to Die, but without that sort of cover of the electronic, like we said before, where it's just like she is saying there's so much dramatic irony in the way that she writes, and that there's things that's like she's saying the opposite of what she feels or what she's trying to convey. And
sometimes you can't even tell where the irony lies, where it begins and ends. And
she switches back and forth within the same song between like being subversive and being sort of just honest.
That's true. And that really keeps your attention as a listener. You're like thinking about like, what does she mean by this? These lyrics that come across like so hard hitting, like what does it mean? Is it tongue in cheek? Or is this representing like this deep pain? Like I can't figure it out, and it holds that mystique.
Yeah. You were talking about Cruel World. I took a screenshot. I didn't write it down. Get a little bourbon in ya, get a little bit suburban and go crazy. Like, who writes that? It's so good.
Get a little bourbon in ya sounds like the name of a season 1 Mad Men episode.
Oh my gosh. It's so like everything about that evokes everything is like the weird, you think of like the 50s, you think of like suburban wives in the 50s and like how like how much existential angst they had about their lives and how they would like drink and present themselves a certain way to get through it. And just in those two little lines, I had a whole world in my mind.
It's the opening song and you kind of get the whole record right there.
Yeah.
I love when that happens. Like I'm thinking like, it's like the dark side of Pleasantville, you know?
Yeah.
I want to talk about guitar for a minute.
Okay.
Because also on Shades of Cool, at about 4 minutes, you start to get this unexpected guitar taking a front seat. Mm-hmm. And it reminds me of the way like Adrian Utley uses guitar in Portishead.
Okay.
It'll often come in on the back end of a song and just like bring you out to the end in this like sultry, sexy kind of way. And that was really, it reminded me of that here. If you haven't heard Third by Portishead, that's one of my favorite records.
That's another one.
One of my favorite records of all time.
Yeah, great record.
Should we move on to Brooklyn Baby?
Yeah, I took another screenshot.
Okay, give it to me.
There, or was it two? Fun fact, not so fun fact from Wikipedia.
Okay.
She wanted to work with Lou Reed on this album, and she was supposed to meet with him. And he died the day she arrived in New York.
No way.
Yeah, so the line is a reference.
So Gorillaz got in right at the tail end, and Lana didn't quite make it.
Yeah, a bummer too, because he was going to work with her. Would have been amazing.
That makes more sense than anything ever.
Yeah.
That they were going to do a record together.
Or just a song, I think. I don't know.
Just a song,
she was already,
okay.
I think she was, I won't say too much because I don't know the whole context.
His presence is still felt.
It's
like I wrote Brooklyn Baby is very, very Velvet Underground. Like even if you lost that reference out of the lyrics, like it still feels Velvet Underground.
And that male vocal that comes in at the end.
That's right. Yeah.
That's partly why I looked at the Wikipedia. I was like, is that Lou Reed? Like, wouldn't I know that?
Right. And then, moving on to West Coast, I thought that there's an interesting, I'm not sure if it's, what do you call it? If it's a purposeful reference.
Yeah.
But this Move, Baby, Move. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like, sounds like Edge of 17.
Yeah.
Which
it does. Yeah.
I've heard recently in Miley Cyrus's Plastic Hearts.
I mean, it's a much sampled song referenced. Yeah.
It's sort of ever present in the pop world. That song has kind of its hands in everything.
Yeah, rightfully so. It's amazing.
And you haven't even heard much Fleetwood Mac.
No, I've heard like
Or is that Stevie Nicks?
I think that one is Fleetwood. Oh gosh, sorry.
I'm blanking.
We're not well versed, I guess. Well, and then so the whole West Coast, New York thing was also very intentional. It was about those two. So there is this sort of tension in the album between, because they're very different places. They're very different feelings.
I can really feel that she can I feel like she can write a record that feels so LA, and she can write a record that feels like Route 66 diner, like dusty diner where no one's been in 40 years, It's so interesting how she can seamlessly move throughout that. I'm just rushing to get to Florida Kilos.
But this is the only other lyric I pulled, so I'll just say this real quick. So she's in Brooklyn Baby. She's basically encompassing herself in the ultimate hipster, you roll your eyes at this kind of person, Brooklyn Baby.
Sure.
I'm churning out novels like beat poetry on amphetamines. So she's talking about the beat generation, much revered. I studied beat poetry. I love some of those poets. But that's who the dudes would walk around with their Kerouac novels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then she said, what is it? I didn't take a picture of it, but it was my jazz collection's rare. I can play almost anything.
I just made a connection. Okay. Okay. You know that LCD Sound System song, Losing My Edge?
Yeah.
That is like, they're like doing the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
For very different groups of people.
Yes.
But James Murphy's like self-doubting rant. That is that song, which is like one of my favorite songs ever written, I think, Losing My Edge. And yeah, what you're saying about what she's doing here, like that's totally that kind of thing. And I love it.
Yeah, this is why I say it's subversive, because she's taking that cliche and being like, yeah, that's me. You know, I'm just like the Brooklyn baby. And she's making fun of it. And but she's saying there's merit to it at the same time. It's like, you know, there's art and there's passion. And there's also like using those things as talismans.
Yeah.
To be seen as a certain way. It's like so complex.
There's like 40 layers.
There's so many
of irony
layers.
going on, self-reflection, or is it criticism of another party?
I was just
you
like,
can't quite make it out.
I know. I was like sitting on the train listening to this album, and like my mind was like blowing, just sitting there like, she's brilliant. Like I already knew she was, but
so we should start to speed this up here.
we don't have to talk about every single song.
Let me blast through some notes.
Okay.
Let me blast beat through some notes here.
Blast beat.
Yeah, that's that thing on drums where it's like. Okay. All right. Money, Power, Glory. I love the percussion. I love the confidence of this song. This is where the back half of the album really starts to win me over. Blank My Way to the Top really paints a picture with the lyrics. I mean, just like I talked about earlier, like you're getting that here tenfold. Old Money, actually, I think this is probably purposeful too, has like a musical reference to Blue Jeans in the chorus.
Oh, okay.
You sort of hear that melody of like, I will love you till that thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I just did it perfectly, actually. Yeah, that's in the chorus of Old Money, kind of referencing her past already, which I love when artists do that, like immediately on their second thing. Other Woman, you're getting like old Dolly Parton kind of song, you know? And I think this record really needed that.
Yeah, like ultimate Americana.
Like just go back and just do it true. Like just like let's stop talking about it. Let's just do one.
Yeah.
And so I was really happy to hear that. Black Beauty, I Have Nothing. And oh, what do you know? We've arrived at Florida Kilos.
Ooh.
Let's talk about it.
Ooh.
Okay. Loved it. Favorite song. I don't know if it beats Cola as my favorite Lana song I've heard yet, but they're maybe neck and neck.
Yeah, I think so too. Though, I mean, I am very won over by this album. I love a lot of the stuff on it. I love this song partly because of how odd it is to be at the end here.
Yeah. It's like having that sound come back at the end that I missed from Born to Die. You know, I wasn't expecting to hear it again on the last track. And then all of a sudden you get that sort of brattiness that was in Born to Die on a couple of choruses and stuff. You hear it back again and I'm just like, oh, yes, she gave it to me right at the end there.
I mean, technically this was initially like a bonus track. You know,
absurd. It should have been on the album.
But like you could see why, because it doesn't fit. And
it's
there's
true.
You know, another small bit of context. She had like been working on this album and she like thought she had it done. She met this guy, Dan Auerbach, or however you say it.
The Black Keys guy? I think so.
Could be. And there was rumors that they were in Nashville working on it. And then they they met up for like 3 days and it turned into 6 weeks. And they just did the album. So she thought it was done. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Black Keys guy.
So
Gotcha.
yeah, she thought the album was done. They met up. They spent 6 weeks, and then they were like, "We're happy to present you Ultraviolence."
That's really cool because him coming into this project, you would think guitar would be pushed more,
right?
But obviously, he knows when to step back. There's little moments where it comes through, and now I guess obviously I know it's him doing the guitar, but he knew to not try to push it and make it the focus.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't look at the Wikipedia this time. I just went right into the record.
Yeah, I don't usually, but like there was just a couple things that sort of like made me a little interested.
I get too scared that people are going to yell at me because I didn't know everything
that you
about
didn't
it.
say it right. Yeah, but that's okay because that's the point of what we're doing. We're not gatekeeping any music. You don't know anything about an album, you could still like it. You could be like, I wonder who did this. I wonder why this. I don't know. I could look it up. I could just enjoy the music, whatever.
And people fill me in the comments.
Yeah, which is handy.
Yeah.
My final thought, if you're feeling like this is wrapping up, is that Lana Del Rey is a giant weirdo. The best possible compliment is that she is a giant weirdo. People tried with the first album to be like, oh, Lana Del Rey is this. And then she went on SNL and she was weird. And people were like, what? And like, of course she's weird.
Yeah. Did you hear the same record I did?
Like, she probably hates being, in the public eye. She's even said that. Like, all she wants to do with her money is like make a writers community. She doesn't care about any of that stuff. And it's like, that's why she can write like this, because she's like so, she's just so observant. She feels like that kid who was like watching things, and she can basically make herself present in any kind of way. But because she's aware of all these different like ways she can present herself, there's always another level underneath it. That's what I think.
That's a brilliant way to sum it up. I completely 100% agree. She is a giant weirdo, and I feel like out of every celebrity I could possibly think of, I'd be the most uncomfortable meeting her, because I'd be like, what does she think of me?
Yeah. Intimidating, I think.
Intimidating.
Yeah.
And that helps. You see that intimidation on both this album cover, Paradise album cover, Born to Die album cover. You're like, whoa, I don't want to mess with this person, but what do they got to say?
Because they're like, they have your number,
Yeah.
They know you better than you know yourself.
Okay, so we finally did it. We heard Ultraviolence. I don't even know what the next one is. Is it Honeymoon? I'm not even sure, but it's coming soon.
Everyone's going to tell us.
Coming soon. Are you excited for that one? Let us know your favorite track on Ultraviolence. Mine was definitely Florida Kilos.
Mine too.
Favorite track?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Favorite track, Florida Kilos. Second favorite track, just all of the other tracks. Yeah.
And I promise you we will watch the Ride video. People that were mad that we didn't watch the Ride video. We're going to watch the Ride video, and we'll see you next time. This is Not Every Single. I'm Joe.
And I'm Stephanie.
Take care.